The Bill Shakespeare Project presents This Week in Shakespeare for the week ending Monday, November the 5th, 2018. Hola, Bardophiles, I'm Bill, and welcome to the 219th episode of This Week in Shakespeare, a video release brought to you by the Bill Shakespeare Project. This is our weekly opportunity to let you know about the latest and greatest in Willie Shakespeare headlines coming at you every Tuesday. The goal here is to hit you with a quick blast, no more than 10 minutes tops, of Bard-related news. Plus, we'll try to serve up some historical dates for what were the past 7 days of the year. So, this week's news stories included: the Philadelphia Inquirer ran the story of Pennsylvania's Shakespeare Festival, announcing its 2019 season, including Antony and Cleopatra and Henry IV Part 1, among other non-Bard plays. Deadline ran the news that Kenneth Branagh's latest film, All Is True, in which he plays a late-age Shakespeare, has been acquired by Sony Classics for an end-of-year Oscar qualification release. The Daily Mail ran the story of the hubbub over an Australian television Q&A and one panelist slamming the playwright, Shakespeare, as a racist who helped spread white supremacy. Were his plays produced because he was white? Maybe. But they've lasted not just because of the Western European emphasis on English language literature, but because, and this is personal opinion here, its continued relevancy. If you don't think he's relevant today, I ask you to read Measure for Measure and keep Kavanaugh in mind. Just saying. The Pantograph ran the story of the announcement by Illinois Shakespeare Festival of their 2019 season, which includes As You Like It and Julius Caesar. Motherboard on Vice was one of many, mostly tech outlets, that ran the story of a small image on Twitter last week that contained, as part of its metadata, the entire complete works of Shakespeare. It's pretty damn cool stuff. Bustle ran the story of a study which shows that Shakespeare is the most Instagrammed author of all time. The accompanying infographic is very, very cool. Fox 2 in St. Louis ran the story of the new production from Rebel and Misfits Production, an immersive experience of the Scottish play called Macbeth, Come Like Shadows. Such productions attempt to involve the audience throughout the play, so instead of just sitting in the stands watching, the play goes around and through the audience. Sounds very cool. The Chicago Tribune previewed the upcoming production by Janus Theatre of Julius Caesar, a part of their unrehearsed Shakespeare series, in which the actors will be using heavily edited cue scripts with only their lines and the last few words of the preceding speaker's speeches, a technique used by Elizabethan theater companies in rehearsal. Sounds like a blast. DC Theater Scene reviewed the Folger Library's new production of King John in Our Nation's Capital, giving it a mostly positive review, saying that audience should go through hell and high water to see this rarely produced play. The DCist also reviewed the production, running through December the 2nd, praising the production for being a riveting exploration of political legitimacy and personal identity. And finally, the Minneapolis Star-Tribune reviewed The Tempest by Theatre Coup d'Etat, running in the Twin Cities, saying this pared-down version of the play is stormy and thoughtful. The City Pages also reviewed the production, running through November 17th, saying that though the show's successes come at the expense of some clarity in storytelling, this is a distinctive production that is well worth seeing. Now, let's take a look back on the last 7 days and how they relate to Shakespearean history, both his and the history in his plays. On October 30th, 1470, the second reign of Henry VI began, after the Earl of Warwick defeated the Yorkists in battle and drove Edward IV into exile. The reign wouldn't last long, less than half a year before Edward IV took the throne again. This is depicted in the third part of Henry VI. On October 31st, 1396, Isabella of Valois, daughter of Charles VI of France, was married to the widowed Richard II at the age of 9. When she was widowed after the imprisonment and death of Richard, she refused orders by Henry IV to marry his son, the future Henry V, instead marrying her cousin Charles of Orleans. Also on Halloween, this time in 1460, hot on the heels of Parliament passing the Act of Accord, which, while leaving Henry VI on the throne of England, named Richard, Duke of York, and his descendants the heirs to the crown, even though Henry's own son Edward was 7 years old, Richard was made Prince of Wales and Protector of England, and this was also seen in the third part of Henry VI. On November the 1st, 1604, the first performance of Othello took place at Whitehall by the King's Men. Also on this date, in 1996, Baz Luhrmann's film of Romeo plus Juliet opened. The film starred Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes, and I personally love this film. On November the 2nd, 1483, Henry Stafford's second duel of Buckingham was executed. An early supporter of Richard, Duke of Gloucester, in his successful attempt to become Richard III, Buckingham would later turn on Richard, supporting Henry Tudor. He was captured, tried for treason, and executed for his crimes. And this is depicted in Richard III. On November 3rd, 1456, Edmund Tudor died of plague while under Yorkist captivity. Just a year earlier, he was married to the 13-year-old Margaret Beaufort, the daughter of the Duke of Somerset. When Edmund died, she was pregnant with the future Henry VII. On November the 4th, 1787, the famed English Shakespearean actor Edmund Kean was born in London. He would die some 46 years later. On November the 5th, 1605, the gunpowder plot to blow up Parliament, assassinate King James, and restore Catholic rule to England was discovered, and conspirator Guy Fawkes was brought to the king. Over the next few days, Fawkes would be tortured and broken. And that was your Week in Shakespeare, brought to you by the Bill Shakespeare Project. Now, if you've enjoyed this news review, tell a friend and hit the subscribe button to keep from missing these news, reviews, and history videos. For our daily blog and previous Twiz episodes, including links to the news stories we've covered this week, as well as the Real Bill Shakespeare Project podcast, check us out at thebillshakespeareproject.com. And we'll catch you next week.